So you want to know about genetics. Let's get something out of the way first. Never blame your genetics for the person you are. I believe anyone can change an aspect of themselves if they really try. I don't like people who say, I can't do this because I'm like this. What you should be saying is, I will do everything in my power to do whatever I can despite my circumstances. With that out the way, let's talk about genetics. When it comes to muscle growth, your genetics can mean a lot of things. It could mean your hunger, it could mean how easily you can put on muscle, or it can mean how well you take steroids. But just because you have amazing genetics, that doesn't mean you don't have to exercise. You still got to bring your body out there in order to bring your full potential. There are 3 body types your genetics can rely on. There's fat, there's skinny, and then there is in the middle, which is the standard. Despite this, each type of genetic has its own benefit. Fat people tend to be better when it comes to weightlifting. Skinny people tend to be better when it comes to cardio. And then the standard people tend to be good at both. You could also be a mix of fat and standard and vice versa. You are always mixed with something. Don't assume that you're only one type of genetic. To identify what type of genetics you have, you simply just have to look in the mirror. Am I skinny? Am I fat? If you don't know what your body type looks like, simply just Google it and compare yourself to those pictures you find online describing that specific body type. It is easy to identify your genetics, but what's really challenging is when you try to do something your body is not designed for. For example, if you tell a fat guy to run a mile in under 20 minutes, they won't do it. It will be too hard for them, but it's still a possibility. David Goggins is a good example of someone who went from fat to a marathon runner. My point is that if you're going to do something that's outside your genetic limit, make sure to be mentally prepared for it. The reason why it's a mental challenge more than anything is because anyone can do it. You tell a skinny guy to eat 4,000 calories and they will be struggling at the end of the day. But the thing is, they could still do it. They could still eat a little bit more, but the pain from it is what is holding him back. Of course, you shouldn't push yourself to the point where it causes health issues, but it's important to keep in mind your limit and go past it. Now, another way to determine your genetics is how fast you put on muscle. Because whether you're either skinny or fat, you can gain muscle at the same rate. A fat guy can gain more muscle than a skinny guy if he has better genetics when it comes to putting on muscle. But the muscles gained are mostly determined by the first year of training. It doesn't matter what type of genetics you have, you're going to make the most amount of muscle in your first year of training. And that amount of muscle can vary from person to person. Once the noob gains are gone, your rate of muscle is going to slow down. You won't be able to make as much muscle as you did in your first year, but the rate in which you continue to build muscle is still going to depend on your genetics. Let's take Chris Bumstead for example. He is the prime example of godlike genetics. We can see that before he started taking steroids, he had a really good amount of muscle, and this was at the age of 18 in his first year of training. So I would say the easiest way to determine if you have good genetics or not is to look at the first year of training, look how much muscle you gained in that first year, and that will be your baseline of the type of genetics you have. Of course, you can get bigger if you keep training, but it's going to be at a much lower rate, and most of the time you're not going to be able to tell the difference. I'm not saying you should stop training or take steroids because you're not going to get bigger. All I'm saying is to have realistic expectations and work with what you have. That's all the knowledge I have on genetics. If you guys want to know more about training, I made a video on how to train, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. And always remember to live your life like there's no tomorrow.